it's Emmy.
And Amber.
And this is
Death Before Decaf Paranormal.
All right, you coffee crusaders. We have our very first mini podcast episode. Woohoo! Yay!
Yeah!
And we are going to talk about the CrownHill Cemetery in Tulsa.
Yeah, we found this cemetery and
it's really cool. Like,
yeah,
really
we
cool.
knew we had to share it with you guys.
In the pictures you guys will see, there's like castle-like towers.
With cherubs in the
windows.
windows.
And those cherubs are creepy. They have like black eyes. Like, I'm about that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, so this is a really cool cemetery. We've been to a few cemeteries before to practice, like, you know, ghost hunting and stuff. This one has by far been like the coolest one.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite cemetery we've
It's
been
like
to so
right
far.
off a highway. Like you would drive next to it and be like, wait, is this like a cemetery? What's with all these graves? Because there's like no gates around it.
Yeah, there's no fences at all, so it's literally just right there. You can walk from the road. You're in it.
You're in it. You're standing on someone's grave. Don't do that.
No.
But yeah, so it's really cool. And like, what makes it even cooler is like some stuff we found out about it. Like,
yeah, we're gonna talk about some of the rumors and legends surrounding this old cemetery. Okay, so there's an urban legend that tells of an albino man who used to be the caretaker in this graveyard. They say he was hung in the tower located in the back of the cemetery, the Cherub Tower.
The Cherub Tower.
And they say the spirit of the dead caretaker can supposedly be seen late at night looking out from the windows of the tower.
So we'll go ahead and just pause that really fast and talk about that a little bit. Because that, you said you felt like you saw something when we were walking up and like driving to find this tower.
Yeah, we parked right next to the area with the tower, and I swear I kept seeing out of the corner of my eye something at the top of the tower.
Yeah.
Almost like, you know, someone would grab the side of something and peek over it. That's kind of how I felt. And like they were kind of, like something was looking at us to be like, what you doing?
Yeah, and we definitely felt like there was like something watching us. Like we didn't feel like predatory or like any demonic or anything. It was just like something was watching us with a close eye. Like, all right, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna like mess with something? Are you gonna like
to see if we were like gonna be respectful or if we were like messing around.
Yeah.
So I definitely felt like the feeling of being watched
for
like
sure.
Immediately. And so the legend of the caretaker has never been like substantiated. No one ever has found any sort of history that linked to that. And a lot of people equate that legend or a variation of the legend, because obviously not other cemeteries don't have these really bitchin' towers, but they equate that to a lot of like Sparky's graveyard, which is a little legend around here. Several graveyards are claimed
it's
to
on
be
our
that.
list, but at the same time, it's like literally at every graveyard.
Yeah, they're like, this is Sparky's graveyard. Oh wait, no, this one is. So there are different variations, but this is unique because of the tower and the cherub, which makes me think, oh, maybe, based on what we kind of discovered. And when I was looking up things, there's this guy named Bo Llewellyn, and he's part of Casper, which I love.
I love that.
So it means cryptid and supernatural paranormal researchers.
Wow.
And they do a lot of little fun things. So I was looking over he did a quick little investigation, and he said that he heard the legend in 1999. But there's definitely, it seems to have gone back farther than that. But they know for sure, at least like 21, 22 years ago, it was legend. And he thinks that maybe the legend might be like perpetuated because of all the white cherubs. If you're looking from the road, it looks like faces peering out at you from the windows of the tower.
I mean, technically they are faces looking at you.
Yeah, and they're also very white. So
black eyes.
You think,
scary.
Maybe it was the albino man that you're seeing from the road.
Maybe.
But I found that really interesting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And just that building. It's like, you can't miss it. Like, if you go driving in there, you'll see it right away. Because you'll see the glowing little faces of the cherubs.
Yeah, because there's two towers that are at the entrance when you first go in, and they're very similar. I think they might be a little smaller.
They're a little smaller.
And they didn't have any sort of statues or anything attached.
Same structure, though. Like, same kind of brick and the ivy growing around it and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think it was built at the same time as that back tower, but... Man, that was a sight to see. It was so
worth
cool.
the drive. The drive there is pretty.
Yeah, it was a lot of stressful highway, and we were not about it.
No, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I did find a little bit of history about the cemetery, but it's kind of confusing. I found a lot of conflicting stories, and there wasn't any concrete, like, this is the date the cemetery was founded, and this is when people started being buried there.
It's like the Oklahoma way.
Yeah, I know, right?
Something got covered and then it got lost forever. Seems very Oklahoma history.
Yeah, so it was a little hard to weed through and find out what's what. But what I did find for sure is that CrownHill at one time was the only cemetery that African Americans could be buried in Tulsa.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So there's the only cemetery that allowed them to be buried, which is such
bullshit.
That we could go on a rant, but we digress. So,
it's wrong there.
Yes, it is wrong. So one thing that I found through one source, I don't know if it's true, but one source was saying that a little known fact is that the towers, the little buildings there, were actually constructed with bricks reclaimed from the destruction of Greenwood during the Tulsa Race Massacre, which is something we're not even going to touch right now because
we want to make sure that we have a respect information and we come at it in a very respectful way.
Yeah, we eventually would love to tell you the story, but we don't. I mean, it's not humorous in the slightest.
Oh, no.
It's going to be a very, very serious episode. We want to tell it correctly, you know what I mean?
Understandable.
But anyway, that's for a later time. But they say that these towers could have been built with bricks during that.
Which we can go ahead and say, when we were investigating, when we were there, we were asking on our new spirit box. Thank you, Damien and Unica.
Thanks. Thank you.
So with our new spirit box, we got really cool EVPs. We were asking the questions, and we were like, "Are these the brick? Are these the brick?" And we actually got a clear EVP of a man saying yes.
Are the bricks on this building from Greenwood?
Are the bricks on this building from Greenwood? Yes. So the bricks here were from Greenwood? Were they from the Tulsa Massacre? Same. Mm-hmm. So you take that with a grain of salt. That's not concrete evidence, but at the same time, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was
answered my question.
When something directly answers you with a yes or a no type of situation, it's always food for thought. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, I don't want to be like, yeah, I definitely felt like that. I felt like something was off definitely about these towers.
No, we came in, we felt very suffocated. Not in not like the Ray Harrell, suffocation, but in a very, traumatic, there was a lot of trauma. I felt like I was drowning in other people's, trauma.
It was very somber, but a different kind of somber than when we visited the graveyard where the Bayless family was buried. It was more traumatic. Bland. Gosh. I'm never gonna live that down. It's great. But I felt a different kind of sadness here. So
if that was the case and the bricks were that's another shitty thing for this cemetery.
Well, and since we're already talking about the bricks from the massacre, I'll go into the fact that there was a survivor of the massacre that claims that mass graves exist somewhere in CrownHill. Yeah.
Which, going there and seeing how many of the graves were, barely showing in the dirt, it does not shock me in the slightest.
No, not at all. And I've read some things that we'll go over that could definitely substantiate that. But so the survivor says that there's a huge area that becomes depressed every time it rains. And apparently the previous owner of the cemetery told the current owner that mass graves from the massacre are in the north area of the cemetery. And apparently he went so far to bring out a map and be like, oh yeah, it's just right over here. No big deal.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's also said that even some of the cremated victims' remains are there. I don't know what they're talking about, if they just scattered them, if they buried them.
Probably buried them. If they scattered them, how would you find that out? So they're probably urns buried. True.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's just very tragic. And the new owner of CrownHill actually reported the same story about, this is definitely what it is. And he's been inviting radar scanning. He says no one's contacted him, and he's discussed it with every mayor since 2002, and he believes they might not really be interested in uncovering the facts or the bodies.
Oklahoma way.
Yeah, but they're like, yes, please come out, please discover if it's here, we want to. And
which is kind of why we wanted to do this. Like, this is our first like mini podcast episode, because we want to raise awareness that like this place exists.
Yeah,
it needs, like, I definitely could concur that like the way it's shaped, and there's like tombstones right next to each other that aren't in the same family, and it's like there's obviously way more graves than this, and there's a whole field that's just out in the open, that's not, it doesn't have, quote unquote, doesn't have anything on it. It's like, I don't believe that for a second.
No, I mean, so there are a lot of sunken and missing headstones here, and many were actually seen piled around a shed at a certain point.
Oh my God.
Yeah, headstones.
That's probably why they were all squished together. They probably just were randomly placing them.
Probably. So they were removed and like left unaccounted for. Families would be searching the grounds trying to locate the burial sites of their loved ones.
That's depressing.
Yeah, and no one knows how or why this happened. I mean, I guess bad management, but it's just several complaints of mismanagement actually like happened enough to where like the Tulsa legislators and the sheriff's office were investigating, and they actually stated desecration of burial sites has occurred, and that there's been blatant disregard for the final resting place of these people. So many people were upset at that owner at that time.
Rightfully so.
Yes, but the owner at that time, when the investigation happened, he said that it was already in disarray when he bought it, and he bought it through a sheriff's sale that showed that they were not compliant with state law previously. So it's just been a mess for a very long time. This is tragic. So I found a couple stories of things happening here. So
content warning.
Yeah, it's just heavy. Relating to burials, funerals, loved ones. So I read an article from KJRH, which is actually like a news station here, about a woman who was trying to bury their mother in 2018. Like, their mother had already previously purchased a plot before she had passed, and she was told that, oh, there's already someone buried in your mother's plot.
What?
Yeah.
So they didn't like care about files and like
No one's keeping any records. The owner actually stated at that time that he did not have records for where everyone was buried. Like, he just didn't know. And so they went to bury the mother and were like, oh no, someone's in that plot. Do you want another plot? So they're like, well,
obviously we're here.
Exactly. So they went and got another plot for the mother and put her there. So unfortunately, a few months later, the father passed away in that family, and obviously they wanted to bury him next to
each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go and dig up next to the mother's grave to bury the father, and they realize, oh, there's bodies down here.
Oh my gosh.
So there were unmarked graves next to the mother's grave, and it was a huge thing. Obviously, the family was very, very upset and tried to figure it out. Eventually, they were buried together, but it was just a really big mess. But it shows to me that there are probably a lot of unmarked graves here. A lot.
Yeah, and like, it obviously wasn't being really taken care of. And it wasn't from the start, because the way the gravestones were just like there's no consistency.
No.
And we were riding on the dirt road, mind you, and there was just like a gravestone so close to the road that it was like my tire could like be over someone's body 100%.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was so crowded and wonky, and there was no, like, like when you go to a nicer graveyard, and there's like, a line of gravestones that you can walk kind of in between the gravestones, so that way you're not stepping on anyone's bodies.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that here.
No, and I mean, there's usually somewhat of a gap. It's not always a huge gap, but there's always a decent berth between the bodies.
Yep.
And here, I mean, like inches apart. And we were like, well, maybe they're the same families, and we look, and it's just like different names, different times of just like, there's a few that are together, but
so,
I mean,
I think that there wasn't good management from the beginning. Like,
no.
I think that they just threw bodies in there, just like, oh, well, yeah, sure, you can take this plot. And I'm not sure how it was back then. Like, maybe it was a little bit more like, sure, whatever. But I don't know. It's just sad. Like, the fact that people can't go to their loved ones because they can't find them.
Speaking of, so there's another person I read about that went to visit. So trigger warning here of child death, but they had a child pass away 60 years previously, mind you. And they'd, occasionally would come out and visit, but they hadn't been in a while from what I've understood. So they come out and they realize their baby headstone is gone. Like, they knew where they were buried, obviously. And then you go and their headstone's gone completely. And so she was very upset, was trying to find her baby's headstone, looking around everywhere, and they couldn't. And then eventually, I think it was their grandson or something, went and were searching around, and they found the headstone of her baby against like a friggin' outbuilding, just like, and with a bunch of other ones, including a bunch of veterans' tombstones, just leaning against a wall.
What?
So I don't know what's happening here.
It's like they're trying to like keep it open. Like they're like, oh yeah, we'll get rid of these headstones. That way it looks like we have more plots to like be able to bury bodies. And then when they're like, okay, yeah, we'll bury someone here. And then that day happens, they're like, oh, there's already a grave here. Do you just want to like pick another spot? And they just keep digging and digging until they find like a random spot.
It looks like there's no records that were well kept ever from the start. So who knows how many unmarked graves are here, or graves whose stones have gone into the ground, because there's so many that have sunken into the ground, almost completely covered up. It's tragic and it hurts. It makes me upset, because I definitely feel like there's so many people out there that are not.
Well, like it's like disrespectful for the living, because they can't go visit their loved ones, and it's disrespectful for the dead, because it's like, you know, we talk about like, you know, don't desecrate graves, don't step on gravestones, don't do anything like that. Like some places, they just, you know, that's where they rest. That's where their souls can just stay. And I felt like with some of the evidence we got, like there was a lot of wandering, confused spirits.
Is there anyone here? Did they leave? No. Oh, okay. Are we in danger?
Yeah, and I'm hoping things will get better, because from what I understand, I'm having a hard time getting all the owners situated in my mind, because it's just such a I guess there was a white family that owned the cemetery for decades. And then I believe there was another guy. But now I'm pretty sure the current owner is this guy named Mike McConnell. And he is the only black cemetery owner in Tulsa.
Good for him.
And he was saying that he bought it because he felt that it should be in black hands,
Oh,
which it
100%.
definitely should. I mean,
obviously.
the majority of people here are of color. And he believes that owning a cemetery is not just a job, it's a commitment. And he said, quote, "You can't be in the cemetery business for the money. You have to guard the history and heritage."
And like Amber was saying, like most of the gravestones here were African Americans, and the reason we say that is because they have like some photos on the gravestones, and that's how we know.
I don't know. It just hurts. And so apparently he said that many people who helped build Tulsa are in the cemetery too. There's a guy who has a regional library named after him. There's a former lawmaker. There's a judge, some prominent doctors. And this guy, who I hope still has a cemetery, I believe he does, plans to build a monument for the people who lived through or were involved with the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre.
Good. I think that's important.
Yeah, he said he came up with this idea the day he bought the cemetery. He knew he wanted to do this because he also heard the previous owner talk to him and was like, "Oh yeah, there's mass graves over there." And
Nonchalantly, who cares?
Yeah, so that obviously upset him.
Rightfully so.
But that's what I have. So the history's a little confusing. I don't know when things were necessarily founded.
It honestly just sounds like there's a lot of cover-ups, and it sounds to me like shady business overall. Like before, obviously, this new owner.
Yeah.
Like just previous owners just not caring. The only reason I can think of to like remove a headstone and hide it is to make it seem like there's more lots open.
Right, because I don't see any other purpose for that. And then people are trying to bury their loved ones, and it's like, oh, someone's already here. I'm like, was that a headstone that was removed, or were they buried and never marked in the first place? But just anywhere you're going to have desecration of graves and, missing sunken headstones and cover-ups, it's going to leave a lot of residual energy.
Oh, for sure. Like we had said, like that suffocating, like just dread feeling of like walking, like coming in and just utter confusion. Like
sadness, anger,
despair.
upset. Like it was a bunch of emotions rolled into one.
But it was like a bunch of emotions from like with different kinds of emotions, almost like different people. And I think that's like what I'm like going at is like on our new spirit box we heard so many different voices. What was nice was that we heard the same consistent voices. Like there was probably like 2 or 3, maybe 4 of people who had the same consistent voice that we heard from and that were answering us, which is really cool. But there were also a ton of other voices from afar, all different directions.
Well, and you asked like how many people are here with us, and
it kept going up.
It kept
going,
going,
5, and then it was like 6, and at one point I heard 12.
How many are there? true? How many people are here? 5. I heard 5.
So I feel like more maybe we're gathering as we were doing it. But what was really interesting and really cool, but also sad, was that we were able to go inside the tower because at some point, I mean, this tower hasn't been maintained, obviously. And
the door was just on the ground.
Yeah, the door had just fallen over.
Like beer bottles, Gatorade bottles, and trash just like sitting in there, and like a bunch of like flowers.
Yeah, there was a ton of the fake flowers that you would be placing on graves, and it just has such a weird energy to it in general. Like,
it was beautiful though.
Oh, it was stunning. It was gorgeous. But we actually got to go inside and conduct a lot of our investigation inside the tower with the spirit box, with our cameras.
Which, mind you, it's like really cold outside right now.
Oh
it's like, I think it's right now, I think it's like 35, but it feels like 22 or something.
Probably.
Like that.
I mean,
that
the
wind.
wind.
We didn't get to investigate for a while, but we didn't investigate for as long as we wanted to. And a lot of our footage was like clouded and like messed up from wind.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, we did catch some pretty interesting EVPs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's all we caught was EVPs, which is fine. It is the middle of the day. We did not go at night because even though you probably could go there at night because there's no way to just stop you, Amber and I want to be respectful. And like, clearly this place has already had so much disrespect happen to it. Why would we want to disrespect it even more?
Yeah, exactly. So we did not feel good about going at night out there. I just don't think it's right.
But the evidence, like, we'll just go ahead and hobble into
Let's hobble in.
So first of all, like, we really, because of the albino man, that's like the biggest, like, everything that's happened is so sad. So we were like, let's just start with the albino man and get that out of the way. So we kept asking for the albino man, like, is the albino man here? And I kept wanting to get a name because I hate calling him that.
Yeah.
Because
it feels disrespectful, like stereotyping.
Like, and back then, like, they probably all saw him like as this monster. And so I was like, what's your name? What's your name? And we couldn't get any answers. And then finally we got a super clear EVP of a man saying he's mute.
Yeah, he's a mute.
What is your name? I don't want to call you the albino man. I think that's disrespectful. What is your name? Did they say he's a mute?
I think it might have said that. Or something
he's a
like
mute.
That.
And like after that we were like, wait, did that say he's a mute? And we're like, is he mute? And then I'm pretty sure I heard a yes.
Yeah.
So then it's like, okay, so now we can't really ask questions.
Yeah, but it made sense because like the guy I was talking about that went out and investigated with his team, he said he got some other EVPs showing that there's evidence the cemetery is most likely haunted, but that he did not get any evidence about the albino man and he wasn't speaking to him. And that would make sense why nobody is getting...
Because he's mute.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a couple of other really cool and interesting EVPs of just like, like we were saying, like how many spirits are here, and they would give us numbers.
Yeah.
When I asked if the brakes were
the Tulsa Race Massacre.
The Tulsa Race Massacre. And then like that voice said, yes, ma'am, very clear. Like a lot of these EVPs were like so clear, like in our spirit box. Like it would like we had talked about before, the frequencies would just break and it would be a clear voice.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of other ones that we'll dabble into and like show later. But it is really interesting.
It was cool. I love when we have distinct voices coming through multiple times, because that to me is more evidence than just a ton of random voices. And having, especially, I know for sure we got 2 voices, a woman and a man, that came across a lot. So that was amazing. And then we decided to actually set up our camera inside the tower while
we were freezing. We had to go in the car and warm up because we could not feel our fingers and feet. So we set up the GoPro and went into the car for probably about like 30, like a little under 30 minutes. Yeah. And just had it playing. And when we looked over the footage, the wind definitely like kept us from being able to hear a lot. You actually can hear some like some voices here and there.
Yeah, there's several pretty clear EVPs for at least going over the wind. And then I think there was one light banging that only happened one time in the 30 minutes, which makes me think maybe it was, but it's hard to tell with the wind.
Yeah, well, I mean, the wind, there was a multiple gusts, so like I would say that would be an EVP because it would have played a lot, like that same banging if it was.
I thought so. And then we heard a lot of faint whispers.
For sure.
Which is hard to differentiate between the wind and the whispers, but there were a few there that I really think.
Like eventually, like when you're hearing like the evidence, you hear the same like sound of like the wind and then like the
big
highway,
gust and like there was like a little trash bag that was inside the tower, and it was just everyone's all. We're like, oh, we should have taken out that stupid trash bag.
But like anyway, you have things that you wish you would have done during investigations.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyways, like there was definitely some like consistent sounds that over time you're like, okay, that's that. But then like every once in a while you'll hear like something. And I'm pretty sure I heard like one of the EVPs was like it was like something like along the lines of like just don't like it, like I don't like it, or like creeps me out, something, or like freaks me out or something like that. Like it didn't like the camera almost. Like maybe it just was like I don't know, don't like it.
Yeah, I felt like there were multiple things maybe chilling around it, being like, what is this? Because we got a few, because I think they were all different voices.
Oh, for sure.
My opinion.
Well, it definitely like our spirit box caught a ton of different voices, and we had to like ask them like, can you speak one at a time? And then there was a long gap, and then a man's voice went, hello.
Yeah.
It was so like, honestly really cute. And so he was like, hello.
Talk one at a time, guys.
Yeah, we can't understand you guys because you're talking over each other. One at a time, please. Hello. Hi.
Hi.
He followed us around for a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, so we had to like ask these spirits like, hey, can you please like talk one at a time? Because they were just like talking over each other.
We got several names too.
Oh yeah, and we'll
like
there was a couple of names. And we drove around the cemetery to like look for the names, and like there's just so many.
Well, and then one area of the cemetery when we were driving, we got a different feeling than anywhere else. And it was when we were on that road, we just felt like we were on top of graves. Like
100%.
I just, when you step on a grave, you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, or at least I do.
Rush, yeah.
You just know, like, oh, like I'm on someone's grave, but it felt like that. And then we drove around the whole cemetery, and that's the only section that I felt like that. So I definitely feel like there are a lot of, and it was right by a field that had no markers whatsoever.
Which I don't believe.
Yeah, I definitely think that there were bodies in 100%. That field.
Well, even like when you're talking about that road, when we got out of, we had the spirit box going, and we got out of the car, and as we were walking, a clear voice went, wait!
Yeah.
Wait. Something just said wait.
Who's here with us? Me?
Who is this?
Curious. Just curious. So me? You want to talk? Did you want to talk to me? Oh no. Who's here with me? He is? Who's he? Why do you want to talk to me? Danger? Are we in danger?
And then it was like trying to say something to me because it kept saying you, and I was like, me? And like I gestured to myself, and then it went yes. And I was like, what do you want? And then it didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe we shouldn't like keep going, maybe we should just go home. And like we both felt like maybe it was time to go. So we left, and like, oh my god, thank god we left, because when we left, and like there's like one entrance, like, or there's a couple entrances, but like these roads are so small. It's a one car road, and again, there's gravestones right next to the road.
Yeah.
So like you can't go off-roading on this in this grave because you're going to be on a body.
And we wanted to leave by the area that had the towers because we were going to take one
pictures,
last look at before we left.
Which is the main entrance. And so like we leave and we look and there's actually like a funeral happening.
Well, a funeral procession was coming into the cemetery. We were like, wait, that's a hearse. Oh no.
So we had to like hurry and hightail out of there because they couldn't go in until we left.
Yeah, we didn't want to be disrespectful, out there with
that crazy.
Oh my god.
They're like, here lies. We shouldn't laugh about that. But point is, it's like we literally like we're like we should let's keep going, and something stopped us. Like said, wait, don't like.
Didn't something say danger at that same time? It was like danger.
I think so. I'm not. It was something along the lines, but something just kept saying us like, don't go, stop.
Yeah. So
we're like, okay, fine. So we went home, and I'm glad we did because that would have been really awkward. But yeah, it's a really interesting place. I'm hoping that like this brings some awareness to the cemetery because like this place is just super cool and it needs work, obviously. First of all, it just needs a freaking fence.
Yeah, I mean, I think the new owner was talking about getting more security and things like that. So I'm really, really hopeful that under this new management, because he seems to very much respect the history of the cemetery and
probably the first owner that does, honestly.
Yeah, like he seems to actually give a shit. So I am really hopeful that he's gonna make some changes because obviously I think he acquired it and then like I couldn't find an exact date, but COVID's happening and they're not able to get as much workers and things like that probably right now. But I'm really hopeful that he's able to make some changes and start bringing some dignity back to the cemetery.
That's a good way to put it. But all right, I guess we can go ahead and end it there. I can't think of anything else. Again, this is a mini-sode. We could go way more into this, but we're trying to time ourselves nicely. So
yeah, so it was an absolutely beautiful cemetery, but also tragic with the way it is set up. But if you have a chance to visit during the day and see the towers for yourself, I recommend it. It's gorgeous, and just pay your respects out there.
Pay your respects.
These people deserve
respect after everything they went through.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But yeah, we hope that some positive changes come to the cemetery, and it is beautiful. The towers are beautiful. So please
check it out.
And
And until then,
stay spooky
and caffeinated. Bye everyone.
Bye.